Mr. Gabriel,
Hello, Anthony.
hello. Good to see you, man. Thanks for being here.
It's great to see you too. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I guess what we're here to do today is learn about how you got into Juilliard.
Yeah,
Were you always someone who was looking at Juilliard as a potential training ground? How did it come across your radar, and what kind of inspired you to audition?
sure, absolutely. So I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school eventually, but to be perfectly frank, I was pretty afraid of the rejection, so it took me a while to kind of like pluck up the courage to go for it. And Juilliard came across my radar in the way that I think it comes across most people's radar. It just has the name and the baggage associated with it. So I knew that it was like an enormous long shot. I had no idea that I would ever get in. But I decided to audition because they were doing the whole thing on Zoom my year in 2020, so I could do the whole thing without leaving my living room. And I figured that absolute worst case scenario, I would just quit the call and I'd still be at home, which was like I wouldn't have to like leave the room with my tail tucked between my legs.
So it took the virtual audition took some walls down for you.
Took a lot of walls down for me. Yeah.
That's
But yeah,
understandable. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people, rightfully so, are kind of um, turn it into like a gargantuan thing. And we'll talk more about your experience auditioning and what happened in the room and all that stuff.
yep,
But as you know, from someone who auditioned and got in, and someone who helps the audition process now that you're a student, it's all support. It's
exactly.
everybody wants you to do your best. We're excited to see you share your work. Nobody expects perfection, so I think this is a nice message for people who are maybe not applying because of intimidation, right? We really
Yeah.
are excited to see people's work.
Yeah, I think like it was like even on Zoom, it was the most welcoming environment I could have possibly imagined. And I think that like all of my misconceptions about what the school was were just based on my own ignorance. Like as soon as I actually got to speak with some of the teachers and was doing my own research on the program, like I realized that the entire like system around the audition process is entirely designed because they want to see your best work, because they
Mm-hmm.
want to welcome you and to get to know you. And once I realized that, it just made it so much easier. And I was a lot less afraid.
Nice. Yeah, helps you to do your work more, freely, right? And to have more fun, and that's
Hmm.
what they want. Great. So let's rewind, right? Let's go back where put yourself in your shoes. If you can remember, you're out in the professional world, you've got your, degree. Was what degree, by the way, did you have originally? Tell us your school, your degree, so we know your background a little bit.
Absolutely. So I graduated from Johns Hopkins University in 2018 with a bachelor's in film theory and critical analysis, a minor in theater studies, and just a whole lot of extra credits in political science and international studies.
Cool.
Um, yeah,
And
and
was
so
that
I
in your
think
stomping grounds? Like, was that in the area you grew up in? Tell us a little bit about that.
sure. No, so I'm from upstate New York. I grew up
Okay.
in New Paltz, New York, in the Hudson Valley, small little town. Um, Beautiful place. And then Hopkins, I wound up in Baltimore, to be honest, because it was just the fanciest school that wanted anything to do with me. And so I, similarly to Juilliard, never expected to get in there and somehow fooled them into taking me. And so I went down there and they had no gen ed, so I could just study anything I wanted and
Ooh.
just follow my passion. And spoiler alert, I wound up spending most of my time in the theater,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
taking acting classes.
Super cool. Super cool. And then so you're out in the real world for a few years. You decide you want to go for your master's. Tell us about your, I guess, did you have any other programs you auditioned for? What was your school list like? How did you determine that?
Sure. So I auditioned in a really funky year. I auditioned in 2020 in like the height of the pandemic, and a lot of the other schools weren't taking classes at all. So Yale didn't take a class my year. Brown didn't take a class. UNC Asheville didn't take a class. Um, NYU did take a class. I think Irvine may have taken a class, but like only about half of the schools were actually auditioning fresh students because they were sort of in like curricular limbo with the kids they already
Right.
had. So my list was just Juilliard. I was living on unemployment, and I was in Brooklyn, and the bar I'd been working at had shut down. So I was just kind of piecing it together, and I had the $100 for the audition fee. And my thinking was basically that I would dip my toe in the pool, and I'd sort of understand, hopefully by the end of the process, a little bit more about what to expect for next year when I could audition for all of the schools I was interested in. And as we can see now, like, long story short, I just kept working out. Um, but yeah, my entire audition process was on Zoom from my living room, and then the
In
callback
Brooklyn.
weekend on Zoom as well. Yeah, yeah.
In Brooklyn. And I can't imagine you're I mean, are you in like a building with other residents? I mean, are you playing at full voice in this like thin walled Brooklyn apartment building or something? I'm just imagining what is the living,
Yeah.
what are your neighbors thinking, you know?
Yeah, I was. So I was living in this in this really small townhouse that just had 2 units in it, in my tiny little shoebox apartment in Greenpoint. And I let the upstairs neighbors know that this was happening, and they were lovely about it. They were super cool. Um, and my roommates took the day and went elsewhere, so it was just me there, and I had a friend babysitting my dog. So I was all to myself there. But the really cool thing about auditioning on Zoom was that because I was working with a camera lens, it just meant I could like play around with it in a way that like you can't in a theater. And I could tape out like my exact playing space on the ground. So I was
Hmm.
like, all right, I can put the camera in this close up, and I get to move 6 inches this way, 6 inches that way, and that's it. And then I can
Yeah.
put the camera in the master, and I have about 3 feet of playing space on both sides.
So yeah, as someone with a degree in film theory and having experience there, that kind of was a structure you could feel free in, That's
Exactly.
nice. It's funny because I never had any film experience prior to getting into Juilliard or anything like that. But we also put tape on the ground and created like a false playing space because just, and you learn this as you kind of develop your artistry, right? Like freedom within form. When you have structure and when you make strong choices, you can then be more free, like within that, and still feel like, okay, I'm still within the frame. And yeah. So I remember actually rehearsing my audition pieces in this like 2x6 box.
Oh, no
Uh,
way.
so that if we wanted to like go left or right, we could really indicate that with just one step. You don't
Hmm.
need to like take 3 steps over, and yada yada yada. So that was really cool.
Yeah,
I like the tape on the ground. Coming back with the tape on the ground.
it was so useful, and like there was something psychological about it too, in being like, yes, I'm in my living room, but this is my stage. Like I
Yes.
actually have a stage here, and I get to control the experience, even though it is for them, and even though it's for a school. I get to do the thing that I want to do my way, which was really
Yes.
helpful to me.
That can definitely help for sure. I mean, one of the things that we hear, and you can expand on this, is like the more ownership you can feel for your space, your environment, obviously your pieces, and the specificity with which you work, the more higher quality the work is, right?
Yeah,
It's not about trying to do something that you think they're going to want or do it something in the way that they would want it, right? Then you're considering things that aren't necessarily helpful. But yeah, you kind of are taking more ownership.
exactly. And I think that like at the end of the day, like the decision to go to grad school is a decision that you're making for yourself. It's not the same as auditioning for a job. And so like if you approach it with that same joy of like, this is for me, this is a thing that I'm doing for me because of these things that I love, then that love is going to shine through. And like, I'd say the same thing for choosing pieces. Like if you're choosing stuff that you love, I mean, first of all, good, because hopefully you're going to do them a lot. Um, but like also like that's contagious, and people love seeing you love something. Whether it's tape on the floor or picking that perfect Shakespeare that you've always loved.
Yeah, love it. All right, so we're back. We got the list. It's Juilliard only this year because it's a crazy year. Some schools are just wilding out, and you're just like,
Hmm.
look, give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, I'll go again next year for the full slate. Totally makes sense. And so how long did you prepare? I don't know when you chose to apply, but obviously we know the deadline is like December, right? So how long
Yeah.
before that were you like playing with pieces? Like take us back to when you were kind of like reading monologues and looking for monologues. How long did
Yeah,
that process?
sure. It's a little foggy, but I was thinking about it all summer long, and I had a couple in my back pocket. I had a piece from This Is Our Youth that I had done my senior year at Hopkins. Um, so I felt pretty tactile or facile. I don't know, whatever the word, but I felt good about that one. Um, and I had a Henry V piece that I had also learned like years earlier, and I felt okay about that one. Um, so like I was sort of passively collecting monologues for a while. Um, and then it was time to start actually getting active. And over the course of that summer, I was like, okay, so I get this, Henry V thing, and that's a very specific kind of piece.
Right.
Um,
Which is
so
what
like
one?
what
Which
so
piece was that?
it was the St. Crispin's Day.
Sure.
Uh yeah, what's he that wishes so, my cousin Westmoreland's no fair cousin if we are marked to die, that one. Um and I was like, okay, what's the total opposite of like very serious, dire, like prince about to face an enormous army of enemy soldiers? And I was like, well, I did Midsummer Night's Dream in eighth grade, and I played bottom, and I loved that Pyramus death scene from the end.
Oh, yeah.
What
Golden.
if I do
Especially
that?
for an eighth
Yeah,
grader.
perfect for an eighth grader. And I was like, and it was this kind of like weird cheat code for me too, where I was like, Pyramus is Bottom is a bad actor. So I don't have to be good if I choose that as an audition piece. I can be terrible. And it's
Right.
still kind of a character choice. Um, so I did that. I added that, and then I was like, okay, what's the other opposite? What's another weird, different direction I could go in? And I found there was this play by Max Posner called Snore, and it's a wonderful contemporary play. And every act is a different member of this friend group's birthday party, over the course of many years. And I found there's this toast that this man gives, to the love of his life, and he's way too drunk to be speaking. But it's all so sincere and loving. And so I chose that. And so by the time, I want to say like early October or September, I had those four pieces. I had 16 bars of a song, which was literally the only song I had ever worked on in any singing class in any capacity.
Which was
Um,
what?
it was Turn It Off from Book of Mormon.
Okay.
Um, and so uh, and I had like a couple like loose Shakespeare sonnets in my back pocket in case they wanted anything extra. Um, and then I just worked on those pieces over and over and over again for the next few months. I was like, my dad's an actor, so I worked with him a bit. And I worked with my godfather, who's also an actor. And that was really fantastic, just to get like totally different perspectives on these things.
Right.
Um, and then I've made my roommates listen to me just do them over and over and over again to
And
try to like,
were your roommates actors?
no, not at all.
Oh man.
Like not at all.
Tell us about the feedback. I want to hear one piece of feedback that you got from your roommates that was like memorable non-actor feedback.
I don't remember. Okay, so I don't remember anything that anyone said, but I remember like a lot of confused, like nodding afterwards. Like,
I just,
um,
it's always fun to perform for, or like in a rehearsal setting, not like a performance, but like in a workshop setting
yeah,
to work with like people who, yeah, they're just like, it was good. I don't, good.
yeah,
Or they're totally like, I don't even get it. It was confusing. What happened?
which was great. Yeah, and my
Right.
worst nightmare was the audition committee like making that exact face at me. So I was like, let's try to
Already
get
happened.
that out of the
Yeah.
way. Yeah, and like maybe they'll like it or they won't, and either way, it'll just be like another set of eyes on my thing. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you chose pieces that you kind of felt like were just opposites of each other.
Mhm.
And obviously the schools want you to choose contrasting pieces. So like that
Mhm.
was your like, look, let me just go full tilt on the contrasting element. And I mean,
Mhm.
if anybody knows anything about some of the pieces you mentioned, those characters are different. And what we say to people, and if you want to expand on this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like
Mhm.
the pieces should come from different parts of you, right? We all have
Mhm.
different parts that can come out at certain moments. If we place our imagination into those worlds, a certain part of us will come forward, you know? And so we want to choose pieces that like, oh, that's like that part of me, maybe the hopeless romantic. And then here's this other part of me that's like, a leader of an army. And then, whatever it may be. So did you feel like you were really tapping into different parts of you with these pieces?
Yeah, definitely, definitely I did. And I think that also, like, not just parts of me, but like parts of me that I'm not always comfortable with. Like, the This Is Our Youth piece, I was like, this is the most scared this guy's ever been. And
Mm.
like where does that live in my body? How, if I'm afraid to show that, that's probably a good sign. Like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and the same thing with the toast was like, this is like, he just desperately needs to communicate how much he loves this woman and he can't get out of his own way. And that's something I certainly connect to. Um, and like, lots of, I mean, I think the Henry V piece was certainly much more aspirational than anything that I feel in my daily life. But the
That's
Pyramus
part
piece
of
was
it.
just like, absolutely. And the Pyramus was like, I just want to be as silly and ridiculous and hammy and over the top, because that's, I fell in love with this when I was a kid and I was just making my sister laugh. And so like,
Just some raw playfulness, that can go a long way in these like potentially scary auditions. Like someone who just has that, willingness to play is very impactful.
absolutely. Yeah.
So you're asked to prepare four, right?
Mhm.
And you got a couple of extra in the back pocket, which I think is great. I did as well.
Mhm.
Um, but you're really only asked to do two in the initial audition, right?
Yeah.
So walk us through what happened in the room. What did you choose to perform and how did they respond, if you remember, in that
Yeah.
initial Zoom audition?
Yeah, for sure. So this was also like early days of Zoom, so not everyone was like totally solid with the tech. Um, but I actually didn't choose the pieces. They asked me for specific pieces. So they
Oh, okay.
asked me for the Midsummer Night's Dream, and they asked me for Snore, the Max Posner piece. Um, and I found out when they asked me for the Posner piece that Richard Feldman, the great Richard Feldman, acting teacher at Juilliard, um, just an absolute saint. Um, he told me that he had directed the first ever reading of that play at Juilliard. So I found out that I was
Before you
about to,
performed or after you performed?
right before I performed.
Oh man,
I was
fantastic.
like, okay, cool. So like I
Sweet.
picked the one guy who will tell me if I get off the lines at all. Like he'll know
Oh my
right away.
God.
Um so yeah, I did those two pieces. Um yeah, they asked for, I remember, and the after that, and I did, after Richard told me that, and I did the piece, I did the Midsummer Night's Dream, and Richard, and I don't think I've ever actually told him this. I'll probably tell him eventually, but he either forgot to or intentionally chose not to mute himself. I'm not sure which it was. So and I went full out for this. I was like, I'm in my living room, so if I'm gonna talk to the moon, I'm using a lamp, and I'm gonna stab myself to death with a cheese grater, and like I get props. You can't stop me. And I like, after the first thing with the moon landed, I heard him start chuckling. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to play to him as if he's the Duke. Um, and if I can just keep him laughing throughout here, I have a fighting shot. And that's, yeah, I was just focused on connecting there. Um,
Love.
yeah.
So did they ask? Did he ask? Was it just Richard, or was it another panelist?
It was Richard. I believe there were two people in the initial round.
Usually, yeah.
It was Richard, and I think it may have been Dwight Backey, who's a speech teacher, voice and speech teacher. Um,
So did they ask
yeah,
you after you did your two pieces? Did they ask you for anything at that initial audition? Was it more just like thanks, peace out? Yep, me
it
too.
was thanks, peace out, and
Yeah.
then yeah, hours later, or I guess like an hour or two later, got called back. Um, the same Richard brought me back in, did the same pieces. They asked for Henry Five, which was the only time they asked for it. He never wanted to see that thing ever again. Um, and
That was
again,
like my experience with my song. They were like,
yeah.
"Song?" I was like, "Yeah." Boom, boom, boom. They're like, "Thanks, thank you." Let's do some cold reading. Yeah.
What'd you sing?
I sang from Damn Yankees. You gotta
Uh-huh.
have.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I did that, like you said. It was like the only song I had ever actually gotten any sort of coaching on. I had to do it
Hmm.
for like a school project or something, so I got a little help from my choir teacher, like my junior year in high school.
Hmm.
So I kind of picked it back up, and I was like, I just need 16 bars. Help me out. I'm not a singer, but I can sell. I can sell it. Um, so and I like baseball, so it's like, let's just roll with it.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I like my only note that I got for my song from Deb Lapidus, our singing teacher, was could you try that again, but like a little more musically.
Oh my God, what did you do with that?
I tried it again a little more musically.
Exactly, exactly. You just
It's
don't
just like,
complicate it. You're just like,
yeah,
yeah, let's see what that means. Boom.
yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
right.
Let's do it.
Very cool, very cool. So let's talk about the callback.
Yeah.
Now you're in a Zoom with a bunch of people. Are you doing a group situation? Are you interacting with other applicants in the callback?
For the callback weekend. Um,
Yes, we'll get to there.
okay.
But like in the virtual callback, were there any group activities, or did they just do one-on-ones, just
Not on the
adjustments?
first day. No, I mean we'd sit and we would talk a little bit in the breakout rooms. They had current students and a couple alumni speaking to us about their experience. But no, there wasn't a lot going on until it was all one-on-one until the final round on that first day, which I think was the third round. And there was like an interview afterwards.
Right, right, right.
So I got to like meet with Evan Yanulis, the head of the division, and like get to talk a little bit with the rest of the faculty. They asked me some questions, but I don't think I'm not even sure I got an adjustment on like the first day.
Wow.
Maybe I got one. I wound up getting one from Richard during the final callback weekend, but I didn't know what to think.
Yeah, you're just like, I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, you've seen what you need to see. All right, great. You
Yeah,
know,
that pretty much. And I
that's what
also
you got
like,
to do. You got to be willing, but right, whatever,
yeah,
just be like a yes.
yeah. And the tech too, it was like I was doing it into my AirPods, and I didn't realize that if you like double tap the AirPod, it hangs up a call. So like I hung up the entire audition Zoom call twice mid monologue and had to like rejoin the call, be reassigned to the breakout room, be welcomed
Oh
back into the
my
like
gosh.
I was there was nothing I could do but laugh. And and they thought it was hilarious,
I mean,
thankfully.
yeah, I know they've probably had to give. I mean, they probably had their own slew of tech mistakes too. Like everybody was in the same boat. So good to
Yeah.
have a sense of humor, obviously, about that. I think it's good to have a sense of humor in general about these auditions because people will go up on their lines and still get in. Um,
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
work with it and you don't try to resist it and you just try to play it and make it part of the whole experience, that's the best you can do. And
Yeah,
that also says something about your attitude. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. I mean, we had a director, our director for we just did The Tempest, and he's an alum of the program. Drew Wildman Foster's a wonderful artist, And someone was concerned about going up on their lines, and he put it so beautifully. He was like, how amazing that you've let yourself get into a state where you might not know what's going to happen. Like, how wonderful is that you are lost. And so I don't
Yeah,
know, that's like, if
obviously,
you let
yeah.
that happen, that's not that bad.
It is. It is. Living in the unknown is a hard thing to do. And
Hmm.
it's something that you just learn how to do, or you face that challenge for sure at Juilliard. I'm sure other top schools as well. Um,
Hmm.
it has definitely helped me personally, because there's so many times when we naturally as humans want to like have a level of certainty that maybe will not happen, and you just have to be cool with kind of rolling. Um, Having
Yeah,
that great, definitely something I
certainly in
learned
this
in school.
business.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to actually go back a little bit to some of these experiences and prepping. You talked with
Yeah,
getting coaching. You talked about kind of working with these pieces a lot. Sounds like
yeah,
you worked for months, which is very
yeah.
common and definitely what I did as well. Were there any points in the process where of preparing before the audition where you remember feeling like either the dark cloud where you want to change your pieces, or you feel like I don't know if I want to show up to this audition? Tell us a little bit about how like the growth of the pieces occurred, because it's not just a straight line.
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, no, yeah.
Light
The
bulbs, breakthroughs, dark clouds. Tell us a little bit about some of those moments.
Oh, all of that, like every day. I was like, I think the when you want something so bad, that fear of rejection and not getting it when you get so close to it is paralyzing, at least for me. And so I like, in the whole lead up was like, am I am I making the right decision? Like, have I chosen the right pieces? Should I change them? Should I try this other thing? If they let me choose which one I do first, which one do I do first? Like, all
Yeah.
of that, the whole time I was psyching myself out. Um, but the thing that, and this is like yet another reason why you should choose pieces you love, that kept me grounded, was like, these were pieces that I had chosen for me. They were not
Hmm.
pieces that I had chosen because I thought that I could read the auditors' minds, and I was choosing stuff that they wouldn't have seen. It was just like, I like this stuff. I enjoy doing this stuff. Um, so I get to do it for me. Which was helpful through all those many dark nights and days of the soul. Um, but I mean, the light bulbs, I was working with my godfather on Pyramus, and he was the one who first pointed out to me, like, this guy is a really bad actor. Like, the
Hmm.
comedy of it is that he doesn't know what the heck he's doing. So, like, do anything. Like, go way, way, way too far, and then we can pull it back and see what happens. And so I did that, and I think, again, that's like the fear of rejection, or the desire to get it right, was like limiting my imagination in terms of what this could be, and he just smashed that
Totally.
right open for me.
Totally.
Um, And then the other thing he said, this was so smart that he said, because the first line of that piece is, "I thank thee, moon, for thy sunny beams," which is awesome. But the first thing he said was, I did the piece, and he stopped me, and he was like, "I don't think the moon got you." And I was like, "Okay." I started again, and it's like, "No, I don't think the moon understands." If What you have to do when you walk out is, you have to make sure that that moon understands how grateful you are to it. Like, you have to really thank that moon. That is it. And if you skip that, you're screwed. Just one foot in front of the other, and having that one thing to focus on, instead of like, I'm going to now perform. Instead, it was like, I have to thank the moon. And everything else kind
Yeah.
of could fall in from there.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, that's helpful not just for auditions, right? But for any scene, any professional show you're working on. It's like getting a scene started or entering a scene, right? There's more specific. It's just helpful, 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 and then
Yeah.
allows you to be more free. I love that. Love that. Man.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What's your philosophy on like everybody's different, obviously. So I'm just asking for
Mhm.
your philosophy or what it was like for you. How often to work? Some people
Mhm.
really work a lot. Like you said, you run it every day. I ran these things every day, multiple times. I was around other peers who were doing the same thing. And, you know, I don't necessarily remember taking breaks or weeks or whatever it may be. But
Mhm.
what's your philosophy on that? Whether, I guess share what you did and then also share kind of what you would say to people who are auditioning this year.
Absolutely. I think it's like it's a fine balance because obviously like you want to be as prepared as you possibly can be. And at the same time, you don't want to crush the spark of joy that connects you with these pieces. And so I'd say like there's any the key for me was variety in the ways that I was working. Like there would be actual sessions where I would sit on Zoom and I would work these pieces with people. And then I would just be like doing the dishes and I'd be talking to myself and I would just go through the words and then I would like, be walking my dog and I'd put my headphones in and pretend I was on a phone call and just happen to be speaking iambic pentameter. But like, and so I'd just be like running them in lots of different ways so that it always felt fresh to me, but
Mm-hmm.
also so that I like the words were never the problem. I could just like, experience the freedom once those words were fully in me.
Yeah,
So that's what
absolutely.
I'd really recommend is like not just like formal work sessions, but just like making them your own in your free time. And if you start to hate it, take a break. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was for me. I was like, I would get burnt out, and like that's no good to anyone. So
Yep.
yeah, you have to find that balance for yourself and really pay attention.
Yeah, especially for a developing actor, when you're still learning
Hmm.
your instrument, you're still learning like how do you arrive at that place of play and that place of freedom when it's not there naturally. Some
Hmm.
people really arrive at it by like just hitting their head against the wall 5 times, and the sixth time it opens up. Other
Yeah,
people, it's like, yeah, you need that break. You need like let it marinate for let's say a day or 3 days or a week, or go on vacation, change your environment. There's so many things that you can uh, try and then listen to yourself to see how it works. If
yeah,
it didn't work and you really feel like I just lost a week and my pieces show it, okay, well that's
hmm,
information for you. We're all just trying to
yeah,
figure out how to get into the space. So I love that.
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so now we're at callback weekend.
Hmm.
When did you find out you got invited to callback weekend? What was that like?
So it was so weird. It was just an email, and I was like, I didn't expect to hear from them. They didn't tell us when it was going to happen. We didn't even have a ballpark. It was like they were trying to figure out whether or not they'd be able to bring us in person or whether it'd still have to be remote. And so
Right,
like
right.
it was just we were just in limbo. And I got the email and I couldn't believe it. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to jinx it. I think I told my dad and my godfather who I'd been working with, but I kept that to myself. Um,
Wow, you didn't tell anybody?
yeah, I didn't.
You
I think
basically just told, yeah, your coaches, but like
I told my coaches
all
and I
the
told
way
my
through the
mom.
actual.
Yeah, I told my mom once I'd gotten a final callback weekend, but I didn't tell my friends. I had to tell my roommates because I needed to like work with
Logistics.
them. But yeah, I was like, I'm not talking to other people about this.
Right,
Because
right,
that makes
right.
it real. Um, but
You know
yeah,
what
it
you
was
said? I
crazy.
think what you said is actually a kind of a secret amongst a lot of folks who really get into these top schools with these low acceptance rates. Um, we can't believe it.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people think like, oh, are there other people who are applying who are just like already guaranteed, or like I don't know who I'm applying alongside. Like, are there just people who are just like for sure I'm getting in? Like, I certainly have never met any Juilliard alum who thought that. It was always like, oh, there's my name. Okay. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It was like, I mean, I never in a million years, my entire goal was I just wanted to make it to, I wanted one callback. Like I wanted to come to the second round. And if I did that, then I'd be ready for next year. But getting that email, it was like snowing in New York too. And it was just like it was so weird and crazy. Yeah, it was so trippy. Yeah.
I
I
bet.
like
I bet.
did
It's
not
cool.
expect it.
It's a good feeling. You won't, you know. Um, So callback weekend was like, tell us about that. I know it's
Yeah.
different, you know, because it's in person now, but still, I think
Mhm.
they were trying to maintain the integrity of it. So how did they do? What was your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally speaking, I'm sure most people know this already, but the way callback weekend is structured is you'll present your pieces again just to like refamiliarize the faculty with who you are as an artist. And you'll take classes for a day, and they'll take you to shows, and there will be like info sessions about the school, and you'll get to see some work from current students. It's just this like really amazing, uh, like joyful couple day thing, and they did preserve the integrity of that, even though it was on Zoom. And the way that I viewed it was I was like, okay, I paid my $100 for the audition fee. Um, and with that $100, I won a free day of classes. And that's what I want was I want to go to school here anyway. So like I happened to win the lottery and I got a whole day of classes. So I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna participate so hard. Like I
I
just want
love
to
that.
pull everything out of it. Um, and that was exactly what we did. It was like it was on Zoom, but we were doing voice work, we were playing, we were doing physical conditioning stuff with Daryl. Um, we were just all doing our best and going for it with like open minds and open hearts. And yeah,
What
it was just like
philosophy? I love that.
yeah, yeah,
That probably, you know, again, you're kind of creating ownership around what you're stepping into and how you're showing up, and you're being intentional, and you're making it fun for yourself. I mean, and who wouldn't
absolutely.
want that? You know, like that excited, like, okay, I just got that for $100, and like now let me take advantage of it as much as possible. What a great philosophy. I'm sure that kind of um took a lot of self-consciousness off of you, and you just, you know, kind of were able to be a lot more present than you know, other people who might have just been a little bit sometimes what I've found in the callbacks is that there's two types of people who are really now playing even more than they were,
Mhm.
and then people who go off onto the self-consciousness track of like, all
Yeah,
right, now that I'm really deep in this, you know, I gotta like really show who I am. And you know, they're a little bit over calculated and a little bit like you said earlier, kind of that forcefulness kind of limits their imagination, limits their expression.
yeah.
So, but
Which
it
I
sounded like
totally understand. I mean,
absolutely.
it's like
Oh yeah.
even at that point, it's like they're drawing 18 of 50 people. The numbers are unfriendly. Um, but like every single person who winds up at this callback weekend is really good. Like
Oh,
everyone is. That's just
and the
like that's the
faculty
deal.
really, really want them. It's not like,
Yeah,
you know, if the school was able to accept all those people, they would all be accepted. It's not like anybody who made it to callback weekend is like, we were kind of on the fence about you. No, like
exactly.
there, it's just the hardest decision. I mean, I've talked to
Yeah,
faculty about it, you know, so
yeah,
it's an honor to be there. So you basically did, yeah, class for a day. You're sharing your work again, and
yep.
then it sounds like they didn't ask you for too much in the one-on-ones.
Not I did a little bit more here. So I for the snore piece, um, Richard again, he wanted to see it again, and he asked me if I'd try it again, but as if I had just found out that she was cheating on me with someone else at the table. Um, which was really interesting. And I was like, absolutely. And I took a second to sort of like imagine what that might be and pick a person and fill that. And then I just went and did it again. That was the main adjustment I got. They never asked to see my This Is Our Youth piece. So I only ever did 3 in the song, which is a bummer because that was the one I was like, this is my ringer. Um, they just never wanted to see it. Um, which is yeah.
It's the
So,
lesson
but
for
I like
everybody out there. Like, prepare all your pieces the same. You can
absolutely.
just feel confident in your whole arsenal, right? Because even if you think this is the one, right? Hey, your other pieces can get you in, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You shouldn't read in too much to it either. It's like I got the one adjustment for one of my pieces. They never saw the fourth. One of my classmates did all 4 of his pieces, and he got like 10 different adjustments for his song. And so like you just never know. It's
Yeah, there
impossible
um
to figure out.
exactly. Of course. I definitely agree. You don't need to read into anything. And also what I found is that the feeling of auditioning is like a workshop. They really want to promote this as, like I said before, we're not here to expect perfection. This is not a final product. You're just sharing today where you're at in your work. And we're going to treat it like that. We may ask you to do an adjustment. We may ask you to play a little bit more. We may ask. So the people who kind of surrender to that sort of like, I'm here to play today. I'm here to workshop these pieces and share where I'm at with, those people tend to stand out a little bit more because the work is more higher quality.
100%. And it's so different from like auditioning for a job. It's like
Oh,
they're not looking for the 18 like best actors, whatever that even means. It's like they're looking for people who are committed to falling flat on their faces for 4 straight years and getting up and trying again. And like if you can do that, if your Zoom call quits twice in the middle of your stuff, like if you can get up and just keep making a fool of yourself, then you're probably in pretty all right shape.
I know. Well, you're giving yourself the best shot, which is all you can do. And, that's great. So, okay. So you're done with the callback weekend. How'd you feel? Do you remember how you felt after the callback weekend?
Yeah, I do. I remember that I felt like I gave it my all. And I was like, this is, the chips are going to fall wherever they may, but I left no stone unturned. Not, I went out there and I left it all on the field. And like,
That's amazing.
it just felt
I
really
had the
good.
same feeling.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. I auditioned in San Francisco, and it was obviously super late at night. Now there wasn't callback weekend when I auditioned. So you
Oh,
just had
wow.
a ridiculously long day. But it was the best day ever. Like it was like, sweet, let's go. You want to go till 1? Let's go till, we went till midnight or whatever we did. But we were ready for more. Anyway, yeah, I got on like a San Francisco trolley that night. Like just like I just left it all out there, man. Like I had no reservations, no, it was just like, there it was, guys. Take it or leave me, take me or leave me. Whatever happens, happens. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, somewhat consistent. I find that that's a good feeling to have. Any professional audition too.
It's a great feeling to have. And it, again, I think it circles all the way back to the ownership of the experience that I'd taken from the start was like, all right, well, I collected my prize of my one day of classes. So I already won and I made it to the second round of auditions. So I already won that. All of this is extra. All of this is bonus. And if all I got out of this was like a day of killer instruction with these like world-class professors, then like I'm already in the bonus. Like that, it is what it is.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. So when did you find out? What was the moment? And did you actually tell anybody this time?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I found out I got a call from an unregistered or unlisted New York number. And I was like, these goddamn telemarketers, and just like picked it up so ready to like light someone up. And it was Evan and Kathy calling to ask me to join the new ensemble. And I was just giggling and laughing and I did, yeah, I called my mom right away and told her, and she was in disbelief, which I was not offended by. I completely understood. I was in disbelief too. And then yeah, from then on, I was like, they you don't want to post anything too fast while people are like finding out. So like I waited a little while and then I shared the news with my friends and family.
Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Great call, right? Great call.
Oh my God, nothing like it. And like I mean, we've all my classmates have like talked about like where they were when that call happened and how they took it, but like I almost sent that thing to voicemail. Like I was fully like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
discuss my car's extended warranty. Ugh.
Exactly. The disparity of feelings between thinking that call is happening and then thinking the other call, I can't imagine. That's like literally 180 degrees.
Oh my
Um,
God. I was like walking on air.
that is amazing. That is amazing. Well, this has been great, man. Learning how you prepared, feeling some of your journey, and then obviously hearing about what happened in the room and what got in. I mean, how you got in. It's nice because obviously we've heard other people's stories and all that stuff, but yours is unique. And so thank you for sharing. And I know it's going to help people who are in similar situations. All of us who are still auditioning are wanting the same thing, but each of us who get there have our own paths. So thank you for sharing yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for talking with me.
I had so much fun. I want to ask you, what's like, you know these people who are auditioning. You were one
Yeah.
of them. We were one of them. Just only a few years ago, actually, you were. So,
Yeah.
like, talk to your former self. Talk to this audience who's watching. What would you say is one important thing to remember besides all the gold you've already shared, but something to
Yeah.
keep in mind as a parting thought?
I think like I was so afraid of failure that I almost didn't show up. And I think that embracing failure and like coming to grips with it and just living in that discomfort of really wanting something and being true to how much you want it is something that I think everyone should just go for. And I wish that I had become more comfortable with that earlier in my life. Um, and something I'm still working on now, but I just, I mean, it's such a cliche, but you just have to risk it. You just have to. It's
Hmm.
always worth it.
Yeah, and you putting yourself out there is a valuable experience, you know.
Yeah.
So great, man. Great. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Perfect note
Yeah,
to
man,
end
my
on.
pleasure. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yep.
Anytime. Yeah, it's just a blast.
Good. We will talk more, my friend. Good to see you. And hopefully I'll see you in your show coming up at Juilliard.
Yeah, dude, please. Good luck, everyone.
Absolutely. All right. See you, Gabriel.
See you later.